Okay, folks, I have finally finished the video game Final Fantasy XII. Final Fantasy XII was a Final Fantasy series game that was released for the PlayStation 2, which is the last video game console that I ever bought for myself. So I've been basically trying to play out all of my console video games so that maybe I can get rid of this thing and not necessarily upgrade to something bigger and better, but at least be done with console video games as part of my life and just focus on the more important things in life, like work, side projects, family as need be. Um, I didn't want video games to be a distraction. And if I am going to have a video game in the future, it's going to be the stock market. I'm going to be investing a lot more time and energy and effort into figuring out how to beat the stock market as opposed to how to beat these fictional monsters in various fictional game worlds, because that's what's going to benefit me later on in life. But I wanted to share some of the lessons that I've learned from playing Final Fantasy XII, because it was not a completely wasted amount of time. It was a very large amount of time, and that really makes up the first lesson that I learned from playing Final Fantasy XII. Lesson number one is that I am capable of devoting a truckload of time and effort to trivial things. I am just amazing when it comes to the dedication that I can show toward doing these, menial video game tasks, whether it's just fighting a bunch of creatures or, trying to enter in the right sequence of keystrokes or trying to, run all over the map to talk to this person or talk to that person. I probably played somewhere between, and it does keep track in the game of how long you played, but because, there were times that I just left the game on and didn't shut it off, that I don't know exactly how much time I actually realistically spent. But I want to say I spent probably 350 hours on this game, completing it. 350 hours is an amazing amount of time to devote to something that once you shut off the game and you're done, really hasn't benefited your life any. But what I will say is this: it did show me that I am capable of dedicating 350 hours to something. Because in this world of social media and distractions and technological distractions and your smartphone and your email and all this kind of stuff, you might not think that you have what it takes to do something that is a long and drawn out project. You might think to yourself, oh, I will never have the focus, I will never have the attention span to work on something for that length of time. But I think what this video game has shown regarding myself is that I am very much capable of doing that. Now, sometimes I need distractions as well as I'm doing this kind of, menial labor. I mean, there's nothing really that much fun about running back and forth and fighting monsters just to level up. So if you have a podcast going in the background, that can be very useful, especially if you're just having to do that kind of brain-dead labor. But also just the fact that there were times where I might spend, 1, 2, 3 or more hours at a time really trying to figure out what the heck it was that I was doing, trying to solve the puzzles that had been placed in front of me, trying to go on these hunts that had been placed in my list. There was a lot of times that I was actually dedicating my brain to not just dead hand work, but to real problem solving to try and get to an achieved goal. Because and knowing that if I couldn't get to this goal, I couldn't make it to the next goal, or even to the end of the game. So, yeah, there was quite a bit of work and effort that went into all of this, and just knowing that I spent that much time kind of gives me a better sense of what I'm capable of doing. And what I could potentially accomplish if I were to put that same kind of dedication towards real-world, meaningful, life-improving tasks. Another thing that I learned from the game was that life is kind of like a series of side quests. Because one of the things that really annoyed me about the game was that I would be doing the main missions of the game, but there was another thing off to the side where you were in a hunt club. And as you were in this hunt club, you would be given hunts to do. And you would go to a bulletin board every now and then, and you would check the bulletin board, and sometimes the bulletin board would be empty, but other times the bulletin board would have a creature for you to hunt. And that was almost like a separate thing from the main point of the game. There was a main storyline, and then there was this series of side quests. And it was so aggravating. It became so aggravating whenever I had another side quest dropped in my lap that I kind of got clued in to the parallels between real life and the video game, because real life is a lot like that too. You might have a plan that you're trying to carry out. You want to do such and such with your life. But then you get a flat tire, and now what are you going to do? Well, that's kind of equivalent to hitting up the bulletin board and finding you've got a new side quest to take care of now, isn't it? Because this side quest is something that's just dropped on you at random. It doesn't have anything to do as far as contributing to your main quest, but you got to take care of it. You have to deal with it. And so I've actually gotten more into the mode of looking at all of the things that I have to do, these real-world chores and these real-world tasks, that don't necessarily fit into, my main goals for life. And I think to myself, well, that's a side quest. That's just a side quest I've got to take care of. I handle this side quest and then I can get back to the main quest. And it's almost kind of a refreshing way of looking at things. And it also takes away some of the allure of the video game world itself. Because in the video game world, that's basically what you're going for. You want to embark on this grand story, but you're also wanting to, tackle these side quests that come along, or you understand that you're going to have side quests thrown at you as you go. And to know that life is kind of like that you can have a main path for your life that you are going to tread down, and at the same time, you can look at, the little slings and arrows that come your way as side quests to conquer. It puts things in a much more pleasurable frame, and it also detaches you from the need to seek meaning in these meaningless video games and their side quests and main quests that aren't going to improve your life any. If you have a choice between going on a quest that is actually going to do something for you in life and something instead that is just going to give you kind of the dopamine buzz of satisfaction of doing some puzzle that somebody has laid out for you, well, how much more are you going to get that kind of rush from doing something that improves your life or that fixes some issue in your life? Look at the problems that come at you as side quests and start deriving your sense of achievement from that. Because let me tell you, after going through the video game and devoting so much time to it, and then at the end of the day realizing that nothing in my real life has changed, you really get a sense of appreciation for how, if I were just to devote as much time and energy to the main quests and side quests of real life as I just did to this game, how much farther ahead in life would I be? How many more actual accomplishments would I have under my belt? Things that I could show people in the real world that isn't just maybe a high score screen or a screenshot of some monster that I slew. Something that might actually impact other people as well as myself. Or things like ebooks or classes, things that I could sell that have a more of a continuing benefit to me over time, as opposed to, just the dopamine hit of finishing the video game and then shut the game off and you've got nothing left. I also realized something about the real addictive power of these video games and their ability to addict you into stuff that even while you're doing it, you don't like it, and yet you wind up with that sense of accomplishment at the end. And this is kind of a lesson about real life too, because the last and most powerful creature in the game of Final Fantasy XII is called Yzmat, and I think that's kind of a riff on Tiamat. And it's like a dragon. It's one of the great worms, WYRMS, of the world of Ivalice. And it's a monster that literally takes anywhere from an hour to 4 hours to kill. I spent like 4 hours trying to kill one monster. And I did not enjoy it. It was not an enjoyable process. It was a very frustrating process. It was a very, time-consuming, bothersome, frustrating, aggravating, sometimes incredibly stressful process, especially when you get down to the end and the monster changes tactics on you and you wind up realizing, oh my god, if I don't change tactics myself, I'm going to lose this fight. And then thankfully I remembered, it's like, oh yeah, the tactic I used against that other monster could be used here, and so, I wound up beating the thing. And the sense of accomplishment is something, pretty rewarding. Even if you're following somebody else's strategy, and I'll touch on that in just a second. But what really struck me about the experience is that once I had done it, I immediately went and I saved my game so that I would never have to do that fight again. But then, a day later, I found myself sad because I had saved over the game, and therefore I couldn't ever fight that monster again. I would never be able to go through that 4-hour waste of time combat with that monster again. And I was sad about it. Isn't that amazing? I almost got a sense of appreciation for, I kind of thought this must be what it's like for people who've experienced actual combat to feel. Now, of course, nothing I experienced from the game comes anywhere close to the horrors and the trauma of actual combat. And yet, it kind of gives you an inkling of, here was something that was just so incredibly unpleasant as I was doing it, and yet to know that I went through that and was able to do it, and that I came out the other side victorious, there was a sense of thrill that I found myself wishing that I could recapture. And it just kind of reminds me of, you hear about how veterans like to talk to other veterans about their experiences, because they understand what it's like to have gone through that kind of hell and come out the other side, and how they can, at the same time, never want to go back to it, and yet miss it some, because there were positive feelings and positive emotions that were associated with it that you just don't get, or you have a hard time finding anywhere else. Now, thankfully for me, it's just a video game. So when it comes to a video game, I mean, the whatever quote unquote trauma I experienced playing a video game and having to fight this monster for 4 hours, that doesn't come anywhere near to the kind of trauma that actual soldiers have experienced. So I don't have to worry about my addiction being that hard, or the disparity between the video game experience and my real life experiences being so completely different. But there is that kind of sense there, that, a sense of longing, a sense of loss, and realizing that video game makers are very, very good at luring you into this world in which you can experience this kind of sense of accomplishment that yet is not accomplishment, and achievement that yet is not achievement, and kind of lead you away from your real life and the things that you could actually accomplish in that. I mean, think about it this way. I spent 350 hours playing a video game. What if I had spent those 350 hours learning a foreign language? Think about that. I could potentially be fluent in another language right now, but I'm not, because I chose to devote 350 hours of time to something that really is going to benefit me not much at all, except for maybe these few lessons that I'm sharing with you here. It's really daunting when you realize the both what you've managed to accomplish that does make you feel good, but at the same time realizing that at the same time you've lost and passed by an opportunity to make yourself feel good in another way, and also make yourself more valuable to the world. Because hey, if I were able to speak another language, that would be a notch on my resume. That would be a notch on my belt. I would be able to converse with people who I was not able to converse with before. That would increase my own sense of personal utility and communal utility. So, there was a trade-off that happened here. There was something that took place. The time and energy that I invested into this video game, and although, I wouldn't want to give it up just because, in my own personal makeup, I needed that sense of closure. I needed to go through the video game in order to feel like, I had done everything I needed to do. I'm just kind of OCD like that. But at the same time, I did pass by. I did expend that time and effort on something that, in the future is not going to be as beneficial to me as what real world pursuits are going to be. And, it's funny because it reminds me a little bit of my father. Because my father, he went to college later in life. And you would think that he would have used that time and money and energy to get a degree that would have improved his standing in his career. You know what he got his degree in? Interdisciplinary studies. You know what interdisciplinary studies is? Interdisciplinary studies is what you take when you can't decide on a freaking major. And it kind of kills me now to think that, as much as I'm sure he enjoyed himself, he spent all of that time and energy and money getting a college degree so that, number one, he could, have bragging rights about having a college degree. Not a bad thing to have. But number two, just really enjoy himself in the learning process. But he also could have been training himself to get a better job than what he had, so that it would have benefited our family more. That it would have improved his pay, it would have improved his lifestyle, it would have improved my mother's and my lifestyle. Where are you putting your energy? And where do you want to be at the end of all the energy that you've expended? I could have been, a polyglot, somebody who speaks many languages, by the time, had I invested the same amount of energy in that. Now, there's one more lesson that I wanted to impart, and I think that'll be the end of it. And here's something I learned from playing the game and from running into obstacles that I could not overcome myself. Because there were certain portions of the game that I couldn't beat. I just couldn't. I did not have the skill, the knowledge, the tenacity to try different things. There were times when I had to rely on other people's game guides and strategies and tactics, things that other people had developed. I had to rely on them. I had to basically follow their scripts. And by following their scripts, I was able to succeed. I wouldn't have been able to do it without them. And what that showed me was that, if success matters to you, you don't always have to succeed through your own effort, through your own ingenuity, through your own creativity. Sometimes you just need to follow a script. Sometimes that's all you should do, is follow a script. rather than try to invest all of the time and energy that's going to take. Because by the time I got to the end of the game, I just wanted to be done with the game. So if I ran into like some serious issues with trying to beat a monster, I might go up against the monster one time, fail, and then say, okay, show me how to beat him. And I'd go to a game guide and I'd find out the tactic and then I'd use it. And that would be fine. Because at least then I won. At least then I won over the monster. The monster didn't beat me and I got to progress more in the game, which was the point. And that's something that you need to be able to do too in your real life, is to realize that the game of life is not something that you have to play according to your own ingenuity, creativity, effort. You don't have to constantly invent or reinvent the wheel to be a success. You can follow the same scripts that other people have laid out before you. There are game guides to life that people have put out there. They're called books, by and large. There's YouTube videos, by and large. I watch a crap ton of financial and things about financial literacy, things about personal motivation. You've got all these inspirational videos, you've got motivational videos, you've got financial aid videos, you've got how-to videos. There's so much education out there that is just waiting for you to access it so that you don't have to put all of your own energy into solving these problems that other people before you have solved. And let me tell you, there's people who have shown me strategies for life that I wish I knew 20 years ago. If I had known the power of these strategies 20 years ago, I would be in so much better shape. But because I felt at so many points in my life that I had to figure it out myself, that I had to bring my own knowledge to the table, or it wasn't really an accomplishment, I held myself back. And, that my advice on you to that is, don't hold yourself back. If you know somebody who has solved the problem before you, don't try to solve the same problem yourself or try and create a new way to solve the problem. If it's the success that matters, feel free to succeed their way. Because let me tell you, I fought some of these monsters other people's way. And it's still satisfying to beat those monsters. It's still satisfying to come out at the end of a 4-hour fight with the monster. And even if you didn't come up with all of the strategies yourself, to know that you were able to at least take a strategy that someone else had developed, implement that strategy yourself, and come out successful the other side. There is accomplishment just in that. So don't limit yourself to think you have to do it your way. Because there are a lot of people out there who have developed good ways that have made them successful, and if it made them successful, it can make you successful. And the challenge to me now is to take my ego and stomp it down and look at the ways that people have become successful in their own right and say, okay, if I do that, I will be successful too. So that is one of the awesome lessons that I learned from playing this video game. So never let it be said that there's nothing to be learned from video games. But at the same time, don't waste 350 hours playing Final Fantasy XII to try and get the same lessons out of it that I just told you. Because that would be a complete waste of your time. Oh my gosh. So anyway, thank you for listening to this long rant. It was a long game, so damn it should be a long rant. But I'm glad I played it. I'm glad I got the messages out of it that I did. I hope that you will take some benefit from these messages yourself, and lead yourself into going onward and upward, because life is a game, and it's a game you can succeed at. And if you don't know how, go out and find the people who succeeded at it before you and find out how from them. There's plenty of books out there. There's plenty of guides out there. Look for the people who you believe are successful and look them up. Because you know what? They've probably got videos where they've told you, well, they will tell you, here's how I succeeded, and here's how you can succeed too. So go out there, learn from their success, become a success yourself, and don't waste your life on video games. Good God. Because I take it from somebody who did. All right, I'm Mike Partika. Thank you for listening. If you like the content, please do subscribe, and I will talk to you later.